Okay, so we're going to go through an example text and look for mistakes with subject-verb agreement. As usual, this text is a response to a question about a graph and describing two pie graphs. So please look at the link to familiarize yourself with the graph beforehand. So let's start with the first sentence. The two pie graphs provide data. So basically what we're looking at here is we're just checking that the subject of a sentence matches the verb in terms of singular or plural, right? And this is particularly important with simple present verbs where a singular third person subjects usually, well, they have an S in the simple present, right? So in this case, we have plural, two pie graphs, and then we have a plural verb, provide. So that's fine. Okay. Going to the next sentence, overall, it appears, good, that despite some similarities, the happiness of the two groups differ. Aha, here we have our first mistake, and it's quite a common one in academic writing because it's easy to make the mistake of thinking two groups is the subject of differ, the verb. But in fact, remember the rule that if you have a preposition like of or with and then a noun, this noun can never be the subject of a sentence in English, okay? And in fact, the subject is happiness. Happiness is singular, and so the verb needs S, okay? The happiness of the two groups differs. So look out for this. We'll see a couple more examples in the rest of the text, but this is by far the most common type of mistake in students writing at university, okay, is that they somehow miss the fact that a preceding verb is not the subject of, a preceding noun is not the subject of a verb, okay? Right, okay, according to the preference for what is familiar, yeah, okay. Notice that what is singular always, yeah. Okay, so it is worth noting, however, that the younger and older groups share, okay, we have a plural verb and this is the subject, plural, that's fine, share the same largest categories of happiness. The reason with the highest percentage for both are associated with career success. Okay, so notice here we have are associated, a passive verb. Are tells us plural, and at first glance it looks fine, both, but both is not the subject. Notice the preposition for both, so that can't be the subject. And in fact, if we go back, then we see the reason with the highest percentage. The reason is singular, so the verb should be is associated. Okay, look out for this. In academic writing, often the subject and the verb are not side by side. You know, it can happen, of course, but it is more and more likely that they are a little further apart than in simple writing. Next sentence. 32% of adults over 30 state, okay. Now, with this one, adults, again, is not the subject because of. We have 32%. Okay, and since we're talking about 32% of adults, then we use the plural, okay? Achievement in their jobs give them happiness. Another mistake, so jobs is not the subject, achievement is the subject, so we need S. Achievement in their jobs gives them happiness. While only 1% fewer adults under 30 respond the same. That's okay because this is the subject. Yeah? Similarly, both groups experience happiness while doing their hobbies, with a little under a quarter of respondents from either age range indicating that reason. Okay. The final shared category, concerns, good. Other factors for happiness which were mentioned. So this is the first instance where we can point out the use of a relative pronoun like which or who or that, and then we have a verb, right? Now this relative pronoun is the subject of the verb, but then we have to check back and see what does which describe. And in this case, we could ask, does it describe happiness or does it describe factors which were mentioned. So I think we're not talking about happiness that was mentioned, but the factors that were mentioned. So were is plural and factors is plural, so that's correct. So look out for relative pronouns when you're checking for subject-verb agreement. People can make mistakes with that, even native speakers when they're writing. Moving on to the next paragraph. Nonetheless, there is some major differences. So this is a mistake you have to be careful about. With there is, there are, the subject follows the verb. Usually the subject is before the verb in English, but with there is, there are, you have to look after the verb for the subject. In this case, we have some major differences, which is plural, and is singular, so that's wrong. We need there are some major differences. Okay, so look out for there is, there are, subject comes after the verb. Right, there are some major differences in the younger and older people's reasons for happiness. The third most important factor for happiness among those over 30 at 20% are financial security. Yeah, I guess this writer is having a lot of difficulties with this, right? You see the the verb are is plural. But we have to go way back to this one, the third most important factor, to find the subject, singular, right? So this needs to be is. The third most important factor, is financial security. Look out for that, okay? Which means, which means, and we're talking about financial security means, so singular verb, okay? Which means having enough money in the present and the future. Those under 30 do not mention this, okay? Plural, those, good, do not. And instead, 18% of them point, good, to their own physical attractiveness as something that make them happy. In this case, we have that and we have a verb. That is the subject of the verb, but that refers to something, and something is singular, so we need S, something that makes them happy, singular. A last distinction in happiness, relates, okay, so relates is singular, distinction is singular, fine. To how the two groups spend their time. Two groups is plural, spend is plural, good. 15% of the under 30s indicate that traveling bring them joy. This is something to look out for. The subject of the sentence is a verb ing, a gerund, okay? And gerunds in English are singular, so we need S. Traveling brings them joy. Whereas about the same percentage of over 30s feel pleasure. Yeah, good. We're talking about percentage, but we're talking about percentage of people, so we use the plural. The same percentage of over 30s feel pleasure when they are spending time with family members. Good. Last paragraph. To sum up, although the younger and older age ranges, no S, agree, right? Ranges is plural, so agree is plural. The younger and older age ranges agree that work achievements and hobbies can bring them happiness. They diverge, they are different, okay, that's fine, in the importance that those over 30 place on the security of a stable income and time spent with family members. Good. So there you are, checking for subject-verb agreement. It's quite important. It's considered, unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, rather a basic mistake in English writing. So before you submit any kind of writing to your professors, or if it's in your job, do check your subject-verb agreement, especially if you've got some longer sentences where the subjects and the verbs are maybe a little further apart from each other. And look out for some of these mistakes. Please try the guided editing and free editing exercises that come after this one, and watch the videos to check your answers. Good luck.